Hello, everyone. My name is Dipisha, and I am somebody who has a lot of beliefs. One of my beliefs is that as individuals, we are not defined by our biggest accomplishments, but rather by the small mosaic of seemingly uninteresting moments. I think that these moments allow us to be who we are today. I'm also of the belief that who we are today isn't necessarily who we were yesterday and doesn't have to be who we will be tomorrow. I could tell you the story of how I got to speak at the United Nations, but I think it's far more interesting that at 6 years old, I decided that I didn't have a favorite color because I liked them all equally. I think that says a lot more about me. So today, I want to tell you a series of mundane moments that make me who I am today. My mom and I migrated to the United States in 2009, just in time for me to start the first grade. And like most immigrant students, I was placed in ESL classes, English as a second language. And despite my extremely thick Nepali accent and high credits to Mickey Mouse, I spoke pretty good English, and I could read and write to a certain extent. So my mom asked that I be tested out of ESL. I went ahead and I took the test. And I don't know if you know this, I'm kind of a genius, so I passed this test flying colors. My English teacher is so incredibly shocked. She was so shocked and in such disbelief that she called me a cheater. I'd never been called a cheater before, and I'm not sure at that time I really understood what the word meant. But by the way that she instructed me to the principal's office, I was sure that it was not a good thing. That day, I arrived home, teary-eyed, to my mom. And when I told her the story, she became furious. I don't know if you've ever seen an angry mom, but it is one mighty sight. The next day, she and all 5'2" of her marched into my school and ripped them a new one. I mean, she used words that I didn't understand then and I surely don't understand now, and that's okay. And at the end of it, she pulled me aside and said, "I've always taught you to be respectful, and respect is so incredibly valuable, but it is just as important that you learn to advocate for yourself." She was my first advocate. In the 4th grade, I got my first B. And I remember sitting in the bus, holding this piece of paper, holding back tears. And I got home, and I give my mom this piece of paper. I'm shaking. I'm like breaking down, ready to cry. She looks at this paper, and she looks at me with just concern and confusion, because my mom had never actually told me that I needed to get all A's. I, along the line somewhere, had decided that A's on a report card was what defined me. She looked at me and asked me a question that she asked me to this day and asked me so many times since then. "Did you try your best?" I nodded yes. And since then, we've never really discussed grades. We instead discuss whether I tried and the effort that I made, because trying takes courage, and we value that. Another thing of my household was that we were an open-door household. And no, that does not mean that I didn't get to lock my doors. It just means that anyone and everyone was always welcomed in our house. There were times that my mom worked 4 jobs to keep us afloat, and we couldn't afford things, but we never turned anyone away. So when she came home one day and asked if I was willing to donate my sleeping bag to a random man that she'd met, I said yes. There was no hesitation. This is just what we did. We helped where we could. That night, we drove an hour out to the Walmart parking lot in which she worked, and I met this kind and gentle man. He was so sweet, and while we gave him all of these things that we'd scavenged from our apartment, he just said thank you. I'm not sure much more about that interaction. I was quite young. But I know that for months after, my mom would always pack something just in case she ran into him. The last story that I'm going to tell you might not seem mundane, but my mom promises that this was the simplest decision that she's ever made. We are Bhutanese refugees, and there came a time in our resettlement story where we had the choice of applying to resettle in Nepal or coming abroad. Staying in Nepal is the easier choice. We spoke the language, my mom had made all these relationships. It was easier to navigate. But coming to the United States meant that I, her daughter, got a chance at truly choosing who I wanted to be. We often take for granted that in this country, we have the opportunity of choice. We wake up every day, and we choose who we want to be today and the things that we want to do. My mom's most mundane decision led to her losing everything in order for me to have everything. My family was stripped of their rights to decide who and what they wanted to be. They were forcibly removed from a land that they had called home for decades, for the language that they spoke and for the culture that they chose to uphold. My mom lost her chance at an education. My aunts and uncles lost their childhood. My grandparents lost everything that they had worked for. They lost their livelihoods. And for more than 20 years, they were boiled down to the simple term of refugee. And I too was born into that term. I too had that title for many years, and due to extraordinary circumstances, I now have the ability to choose who I am every day. I have the ability to choose what defines me. I believe that we are a reflection, not only of the decisions that we make, but of the decisions made by those around us. My mom wakes up every single day, and despite the circumstances, she chooses to be compassionate, to be kind, to be an advocate, to be selfless. And I, on most days, choose to be an advocate, to be kind, to lead with compassion, to be a little bit selfish and a lot less selfless than she could be. But in this country, where I can choose to be anything, without a doubt, each and every day, I will always choose to be my mother's daughter. Thank you.